be seated. Good morning, everybody. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Judge Scott Minter. I'm one of your 4 Superior Court judges here in Whitfield County. And today I'm going to be presiding over the case of the state of Georgia versus Jeremiah Birch. Miss Bailiff, can you please swear in the jury? Okay. Use the same oath that you used to. If the jury would please rise. You may be seated. Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you have been sworn and impaneled, and you're about to try a criminal case entitled The State of Georgia versus Jeremiah Birch. The defendant has been charged by the grand jury of Whitfield County in an indictment composed of the following count. Count 1, aggravated battery. To this indictment, the defendant has entered a plea of not guilty. This is what forms the issue that you have been selected, sworn, and impaneled to try. It's important that you view the evidence with an open mind and at all times and reach no final conclusions until the trial is over. Don't try to jump to conclusions before all of the evidence is presented. That concludes my instructions to you for now, and we're ready for the attorneys to give their opening statements. Is the prosecution ready to proceed? Is the defense ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, opening statement on behalf of the prosecution, please.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, my name is Decker Locke, representing the prosecution in this case. We are here today to prove that Jeremiah Birch did intentionally try to hurt Mr. Wolf. Let's review the charges, and you will concur it is possible that Jeremiah Birch committed these crimes.
Thank you. Opening statement on behalf of the defendant.
Good morning, Your Honor, and ladies and gentlemen of the court. My name is Aubrey Robinson. I am representing the defense of this case. We are here today to prove that Jeremiah Birch was using self-defense trying to protect Scarlett R. Hood and Grandpa from Ivan M. Wolf. Jeremiah Birch thought that Ivan M. Wolf was causing harm to Scarlett R. Hood, that he should not be charged for aggravated battery. Self-defense, an illegal defense that justifies the use of a force to avoid personal injuries or death. This defense is intended. Aggravated battery, a battery in which a person intentionally or knowingly causes great bodily harm and permanent disability, permanent disfigurement, or uses deadly weapon. Defendant Jeremiah Birch will testify that he was not meaning to hurt Ivan M. Wolf. He was certainly trying to protect Grandma and Scarlett R. Hood. Witness Scarlett R. Hood would testify that to keep the person who is protecting me out of jail. Witness Val Martin will testify that he knows Jeremiah Birch wouldn't do this to anybody. When you have heard all the facts, please decide the verdict for this criminal case, that Jeremiah Birch should not be charged for aggravated battery. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. All right, the state may call its first witness.
I would like to call up to the witness stand Ivan M. Wolf.
Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give, you raise your please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Please state your name and spell it for the court, please.
Ivan M. Wolf. IVANMWOLFE.
Where do you reside?
321 Oak Haven, Woodhaven, Georgia.
Tell me in your words, what happened at Mr. Moses' house?
I was trying on his clothes for a play. Then there was thunder, and Bobby went outside to get his clothes off the clothesline. Scarlett came in and screamed. Then Jeremiah Birch burst through the door, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor and then in the hospital being prepared for surgery.
I would like to enter this room into Exhibit A for the prosecution.
Is there any objection? No, it's admitted.
How good is your relationship with Jeremiah Birch?
Birch and I had beef. He threatened to get even with me because he had lost the contract to build the Three Little Pigs houses.
Is there an idea behind why Jeremiah Birch hit you?
Because he lost the contract to build the Three Little Pigs houses.
Were you intending to hurt Scarlett or Hood?
No, I was trying on Barbie's clothes for a play, and it was probably quite startling to see someone in Grandpa's clothes.
Were you aggressively putting your hand over Scarlett or Hood's mouth?
No, not at all.
So Jeremiah Birch swung the axe at you for no reason.
That is correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Cross-examination.
Did you do anything for Jeremiah Birch to get even with you?
No,
Did you 100% know that the bang was thunder?
no,
Do you dislike Jeremiah Birch?
yes,
Would you say that Jeremiah Birch got even with you?
yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right, any other questions for this witness?
No, Your Honor.
You may step back. Call your next witness, please.
At this time, I'd like to call up Bobby Joe Moses to the witness stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Go ahead and sit down.
Please state your name to the court and spell it out.
Bobby Joe Moses. Bobbiejoemoes.
Ask your first question.
Where is your residence?
382 Woodhaven Residence.
How long have you lived at this residence?
About 70 years.
Does anyone else live at this residence?
No.
What happened on the afternoon of May 14th?
I invited over Wolf to for a play because I heard that he was good at disguises.
What did you see when What did you see when you saw Jeremiah Birch standing over Iron Wolf?
I saw him holding an axe with a bloody handle.
I'd like to turn this in as exhibit.
Any objection to Exhibit B? It's admitted.
think that Ivan M. Wolf was trying to hurt Scarlet Hood?
No, I don't think he was trying to hurt me.
What did you think Ivan M. Wolf was attempting on Scarlet R. Hood?
Nothing.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
All right. Any questions for this witness? The defense?
When you called Scarlet, did you tell her that Ivan M. Wolf would be there?
No.
Was there any signs of a storm coming in?
No.
When you went outside, you left Ivan M. Wolf alone in your house, correct?
Yes.
You never actually saw Jeremiah Birch hit Ivan M. Wolf because you ran outside, correct?
Correct.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions for this witness? You may step down. Thank you. Call your next witness, please.
I would like to call up Sergeant Terry Hunter to the witness stand. Please state your name and spell it for the court.
Sergeant Terry Hunter. TERRYHUNTER.
How long have you been working for the Woodhaven Police Department?
20 years.
When did you get the call?
4:12 p.m.
What did the crime scene look like when you first got there?
Ivan M. Wolf's head was busted and there was blood everywhere.
What did you do when you saw the scene?
After I entered the residence, I realized I needed a first aid kit, so I went back to my car to grab it.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, cross-examination.
Have you ever had any problems with Ivan M. Wolf before this incident?
Yes,
Was it because Ivan M. Wolf blew down the Three Little Pigs' house?
yes,
Have you ever had any problems with Jeremiah Birch before this incident?
no,
Have you had any other disturbances at this house before this incident?
no.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions for this witness? All right, you can step down. Does the state have any further witnesses or evidence? All right. Does the defendant wish to call any witnesses?
Your Honor, the defense would like to call the defendant, Jeremiah Birch, to the witness stand. Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please state your name and spell it for the court.
Jeremiah Birch. JEREMAIAHBIRCH.
Where do you reside?
I've lived in 3565 Circle Drive, Woodhaven for most of my life.
What was your purpose for being out of the house on the day of May 14th?
I was going to cut down some trees around Martin.
Your Honor, I would like to offer this map of Maplewood Hill as Exhibit C for the defense.
All right, any objection to Exhibit C? It's admitted.
Do you recall seeing any sign of rain or even thunder heading towards or at Val Martin's house?
No.
What did Wolf do for you to get even with him?
He didn't let me build the houses on his land because of rain taxes, even though the houses are horrible. And Wolf just cares about the money he would have.
Did you see Ivan harming or trying to harm Scarlett or Hood?
Yes,
What is your relationship to Ivan and Wolf?
it's been a difficult one since he didn't let me build the houses since they are pretty bad. And they are really bad.
Were you aware that Ivan was in the house at the time?
No,
How dark was the room when you entered?
dimly lit.
Could you tell me in your own words what happened?
I was going to cut down some trees for Omar when I heard a scream coming from Bobby Joe Moses' house. So I grabbed the axe, which was the closest object to me, and ran. I saw Ivan covering Scarlett's mouth. Aggressively, he turned to me. And then I struck him with the handle of my axe to keep me and Scarlett safe.
When you exited your truck and heard a scream, were you able to find any other object besides the axe?
No,
When you entered the room, what was the current state of the house?
Ivan was covering Scarlett's mouth.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
State have any questions for this witness?
Did you intentionally try to hurt Ivan and Wolf?
No,
Was he aggressively covering Scarlett or Hood's mouth?
yes,
Was there any other object besides an axe?
no.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions for this witness?
Could you have grabbed an object besides the axe?
No,
Were you trying to hurt Wolf when you hit him with the axe?
no.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You may step down. All right, your next witness.
Your Honor, I would like to call up to the witness stand Scarlett R. Hood.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? I do.
Please state your name and spell it for the court.
Scarlett R. Hood. SCARLETTRHOOD.
What is the reason for Jeremiah Birch's arrest?
He protected me from Ivan and Wolf.
How long has your grandpa lived alone?
Around 6 years now,
Why did you visit your grandpa?
because I haven't seen him in a while.
Around what time did you call your grandpa?
Around 3:45.
Where do you reside?
I live 15 minutes away from my grandpa.
Were you aware of Ivan and Wolf's presence when you called?
No, I was not aware of Ivan and Wolf's presence.
As you were on your way to your grandpa's, did you ever hear any thunder or any sign of a storm coming?
No, I did not hear or see any signs of a storm.
Do you think that the striking with the axe was an accident?
I think it was more of a potential hit just because he was trying to protect me from Ivan and Wolf.
Did you see it when Jeremiah Birch struck Ivan and Wolf with the axe?
No, I did not see it because I was covering my face with my hands out of fear from the fighting between Jeremiah and Ivan and Wolf.
What was your position in the room when you realized Ivan and Wolf was not your grandpa?
I was near the front door ready to run away from any other dangers or threats.
Did Ivan and Wolf use force or harm you in any way before Jeremiah Birch showed up?
No.
From every time you have gone to visit your grandpa, does he usually keep his living room that dark?
He usually has a lot of light, but I was wearing my sunglasses so I couldn't see.
Was Ivan and Wolf making sounds or conscious after Jeremiah Birch struck Ivan and Wolf with the axe?
He was groaning and mumbling about being dizzy from the hit.
How good is your and Jeremiah Birch's relationship?
We talk every now and then, but nothing serious.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have no further questions.
Any questions for this witness from the state?
When Ivan and Wolf put his hands over your mouth, was he doing it to hurt you?
No, he was doing it to keep me silent.
If he was doing it harshly, did he hurt you?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions for this witness?
breathing when he covered your mouth with his hand?
Yes.
I have no further questions, Your Honor.
You may step now. All right, next witness, please.
The defense would like to call Val Martin next to the stand.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you give shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Can you please state your name and spell it for the court?
My name is Val Martin. VALMARTIN.
Where do you reside?
I live at Woodhaven, 367 Maplewood Lane.
How long have you known Jeremiah Birch? And are you guys good friends?
Since high school, yeah, we're pretty good friends.
Where were you exactly when Jeremiah Birch hit Ivan M. Wolf with the handle of an axe?
I was in my house.
How were you involved with this situation?
So, Jeremiah Birch was coming to cut down some trees for me, but then I heard some screams. I didn't know what was happening at the time, though.
Can you please state what happened in your own words based on what you saw and heard?
I was minding my business in my house, and then I heard some screams.
Do you know why Ivan M. Wolf was going to Bobby Joe Moses' house? Coincidentally, the same day Jeremiah Birch was out in the woods chopping trees.
No, I don't.
Do you have any relationships with Ivan M. Wolf?
No, we were never friends or anything like that.
Did you hear any signs of a storm coming up?
Nope.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any questions for this witness?
Are you and Wolf friends?
No.
Are you and Wolf like enemies?
Yes.
Did you hear screams?
Yes.
Did you go get Did you go and get help?
No.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any other questions for this witness? You may step down. Does the defendant have any other witnesses? All right. Is there any rebuttal on behalf of the prosecution? I take that as a no. All right. Both sides having rested, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it's my job now to instruct you on the law. When I finish instructing you on the law, you will go out and deliberate this case and come to a verdict. You are considering the case of the state of Georgia versus Jeremiah Birch. The defendant, Jeremiah Birch, has been indicted by the grand jury of Whitfield County with the offense of aggravated battery, which I will now define to you. Well, I will define it to you shortly. The defendant has entered a plea of not guilty to that charge. The indictment and the plea form the issue that you are to decide. Neither the indictment nor the plea of not guilty should be considered as evidence, and nothing that the attorneys said today or the questions that they asked are evidence either. I should ask, did anyone want to make a closing argument? Did anybody prepare for that? Yeah. Okay, well, I'm going to let you do that.
Your Honor, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, after hearing the witnesses and reviewing evidence, you will agree with the prosecution that Jeremiah Birch is guilty of aggravated battery.
Okay, thanks. Any closing argument on behalf of the defendant?
Yes, Your Honor.
Ladies and gentlemen of the court, you have just listened to all the facts and evidence. You can now see why Jeremiah Birch is not guilty for aggravated battery. He only used the handle of the axe just to knock him out to keep Scarlett R. Hood and Grandpa safe. So he should not be charged for aggravated battery for protecting Scarlett R. Hood and Grandpa. Thank you, Your Honor.
Now that I've instructed you, ladies and gentlemen, nothing that the attorneys say in the case or questions they ask are evidence. The evidence that you are to consider is the testimony that you heard from the witnesses under oath on the witness stand and any of these exhibits that were entered into evidence during the trial of the case. I'll now define for you the offense of aggravated battery. A A person commits the offense of aggravated battery when he or she intentionally or knowingly causes great bodily harm, permanent disability, or permanent disfigurement, or uses a deadly weapon. A person is justified in threatening or using force against another person when and to the extent that he reasonably believes that such threat or force is necessary to defend him or herself or a third person against the other's use of unlawful force. A person is justified in using force that's intended or likely to cause death or great bodily harm only if that person reasonably believes that such force is necessary to prevent death or great bodily injury to him or herself or a third person, or to prevent the commission of a forcible felony. The defendant in this case is presumed to be innocent until proven guilty. The defendant enters upon the trial of the case with a presumption of innocence in his favor. This presumption remains with the defendant until it's overcome by the government with evidence that's sufficient to convince you, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant is guilty of the offense charged. No person shall be convicted of any crime unless and until each element of the crime is proven beyond reasonable doubt. The burden of proof rests upon the government to prove every material allegation of the indictment and every element of the crime charged beyond a reasonable doubt. However, the state is not required to prove the guilt of the accused beyond all doubt or to a mathematical certainty. A reasonable doubt means just what it says. A reasonable doubt is the doubt of a fair-minded, impartial juror honestly seeking the truth. A reasonable doubt is based on common sense and reason. After giving consideration to all the facts and evidence in this case, if your minds are wavering, unsettled, or unsatisfied, then that's a doubt of the law, and you must find the defendant not guilty. However, if that doubt does not exist in your mind as to the guilt of the accused, then you would be authorized to convict the defendant and find him guilty. If, after considering the testimony and evidence presented to you, together with the instructions on the law that I've just given you, you should find, beyond a reasonable doubt, that the defendant did commit the offense of aggravated battery as alleged, you would be authorized to find the defendant guilty, in which event, on this verdict form that I'm going to send out with you, you would put an X next to the word guilty. If, however, you do not believe that the defendant is guilty, or if you have a reasonable doubt as to the defendant's guilt, it would be your duty to find the defendant not guilty, in which event you would put an X next to the word not guilty on the verdict form that I'm going to send out with you. One of your first duties when you go out to the jury room is to pick a foreperson who will lead your deliberations. So that would be the first thing you do is elect a foreperson. The foreperson's job, once there is a verdict, will be to mark the verdict on the verdict form and sign on the line that says foreperson and date the verdict form. You should start your deliberations with an open mind, consult with one another, and consider each other's views. You must decide this case for yourself, but you should do that only after you discuss the case with each other and your fellow jurors. Whatever your verdict is, it must be unanimous. What that means is all 12 of you jurors have to agree as to the verdict, either guilty or not guilty. All 12 of you have to agree. You may now, Ms. Bailiff, you may now escort the jury back to the jury room. I would ask that you give them this verdict form and a pen to mark it with. All right, jury, please go with the bailiff. She's going to escort you to the jury room over here. And then you're going to elect your foreperson and begin your deliberations. When you have a verdict, just let us know. I've been doing this almost 10 years now. It's hard to believe. But what we normally do while we're waiting for the jury to come back with their verdict is I take questions from any of you kids that might have a question for me, or any of the parents or grandparents that are here, or teachers. Be glad to answer any questions that you might have. So, yes, sir, we'll start with you. Is an axe a deadly weapon? It very well can be, yes. If it's used in an offensive manner, that means to try to harm someone. it can very well be defined as a deadly weapon. There are certain items that are called per se deadly weapons. That's all they're for. A good example of that's a gun. That's a deadly weapon. There are other items, such as a knife or an axe, that can be a deadly weapon depending on how they're used. Because you can use an axe to chop wood. In that case, you're not using it as a deadly weapon, you're using it as a tool. A knife, you can use it, to cut meat or celery or whatever. In that case, it's not a deadly weapon, but if you're using it to try to harm someone, then it would be a deadly weapon. Okay? All right, good question. Yes?
Can the handle of an axe be dangerous?
It can be, yes, absolutely, depending on how you use it. All right. Now, sometimes some of you guys want to know about what I do as a judge, that kind of thing. If you have any questions about that or how I became a judge, I'll be happy to answer anything like that. We have to answer any question that you might want to ask. Yes? How did I become a judge? Okay. So I started out as an attorney. That was my first job, a lawyer, like these guys were portraying today. The way you become a lawyer, first you have to graduate high school. I graduated Northwest High School, which is where you guys are going to go someday, right? Yeah. And in fact, Mrs. Queen and I graduated the same year. And her husband and I went to school from Pleasant Grove all the way up through high school and then into college together. And I was in their wedding. So yes, I've known her a long time. Went to Northwest High School, graduated from there, graduated from the University of Georgia with my bachelor's degree. Then after college, you go to law school for 3 years. After law school, become a lawyer. I was a lawyer for 20 years before I became a judge. The way I became a judge, you have to be, one of the requirements under law, you have to be a lawyer for at least 7 years before you can become the kind of judge that I am. I was a lawyer for about 20 years. I was a prosecutor. I did what these guys did for those 20 years. One of the Superior Court judges, who was then the Superior Court judge, decided that he wasn't going to run for his office again. He was going to retire. So I decided to run and was blessed. The people of Whitfield and Murray County, because we cover both counties, voted for me. And I was elected in 2016. And I've been reelected twice since then. So in our state, judges are elected by the voters, just like a mayor or a governor or the president, that kind of thing. So that's how I became a judge. Yes? 3 years is what it normally takes. It's never any quicker than that. I knew a few people that took a little longer because they were in military service and had to interrupt they got sent to other places in the world, and it took them a little longer because they were in the military, but usually it's 3 years. Sir?
What was your worst case?
What was my worst case? Well, it's hard to say. I've done, both as a prosecutor and a judge, a lot of cases that were unpleasant. But I would say, just overall, the worst cases that I have involve cases where children get hurt in some way. Those are the hardest ones to do. All right, let's go over here and take a question. Yes? Why did I want to become a judge, is your question? So, I didn't always. When I was your age, I didn't know that I was going to become a judge, and it wasn't, you know what I wanted to do when I was in 5th grade? I wanted to be an astronaut. Yeah, I wanted to go to space. And I still do. I would, if Elon Musk would let me get on one of his rockets, I'd get on it tomorrow. But just went a different way. When I got into high school, I was better at things like social studies and writing and things like that. And so I sort of moved towards the law. I decided in high school that I wanted to go that route. So when I went to college, I started on that path instead of going, the mathematics and science that you have to do to be an astronaut or something like that. And after I became a lawyer, I still didn't know I really wanted to be a judge. It was probably, 10 or 15 years as a prosecutor before I decided that was something that I might want to do. And some of the attorneys that I tried cases against, the defense attorneys that I tried cases against, I had a couple of them say, you know, you should really think about being a judge someday. And I had never really thought about that. I did think, you know, I might run for an office, like be a public servant someday, like maybe run for Congress or something like that, or state representative. But I'd never thought about being a judge. But when they started mentioning that, I thought about it, and that might be a good thing to do. So I started taking that path. All right. Any other questions? We got one back here in the back. Yes, sir.
What's the longest sentence you've given?
What's the longest sentence I've given someone? Is that what your question is?
Yeah.
Life imprisonment with no parole. What that means is that person will never get out of prison. That's where they will live for the rest of their life. That's the longest I've done. Yes. Think about it and I'll come back to it. Can a pillow be a weapon? Yes, it can. Because you can actually smother somebody with a pillow. So many things that you might not think about could be considered a deadly weapon. I'll give you a crazy example that I actually saw in a case when I was a prosecutor. A crock pot. Somebody threw and hit another person in the head with a crock pot. And we actually indicted as a deadly weapon to wit a crock pot. And that person was found guilty. Well, you can just go on down that path all day long. Yes, in the back. What's the longest a court case has gone? Well, there have been many very long ones across the country, but we really don't. I want to knock on wood before I say this, because next time I have it, it might go 10 months. But the longest I've had has been a week. I've never had one go past a week. In our circuit, probably the longest I've seen one go is 3 weeks, and that's really long. But there have been cases in Atlanta just in the last few years that have gone a year, which is crazy. But there were a lot of different defendants in the case. There wasn't just one person charged. There were like 20 people charged. And so it took and a lot of lawyers involved. When you get a lot of lawyers involved, things can go a long time. So, yeah, there have been some long ones, but we haven't, and I hope we don't have any that. Let's see, let me get somebody I hadn't called on. Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. Her question is, what if you go to law school, become a lawyer, and you decide you don't want to do that anymore? I've known people that decided, hey, you know what, this isn't for me, and they went on to do other things. I know one that became a writer. I know others that have gone into teaching. I've seen lawyers do a lot of different things, and sometimes people, get into a job, whatever, it might be law, it might be something else, and just at some point decide, you know what, I want to do something else, and that's fine. You can. Now, I'm glad that didn't happen with me, because 3 years is a long time to go to school to study for something that you don't end up doing. But if that happens, it's better, and you decide you're miserable doing the job, it's better to go on to something else than you'll live your whole life doing something that you don't like. Okay, yes, sir.
So, if you want to go to jail or prison or something, would you still be able to be a judge?
No. So, if you go to prison, that means you're convicted of a felony offense, which is punishable by a year or more in confinement in prison. And a person who's convicted of a felony cannot be a judge. So no, I could not. Now, have I missed anybody back here that has a question that they wanted to ask? Because I can't see your hands go up if you ask. I got you with one. Anybody I haven't answered a question from? Any of the parents have any questions you want to ask? Okay, now we're going to take repeat. All right, we'll start with you.
Have you ever been a judge or a lawyer for a murder case?
Yes, both. I prosecuted murder cases when I was in the district attorney's office, and I've also been a judge on several murder cases too. Yes. years ago, the appeal, if you're convicted of a crime, you can appeal it to a higher court, the Court of Appeals or the Supreme Court of Georgia, and that appeal just came back. So I'd say that was probably 2 or 3, that usually takes a couple of years, so that's probably 2 or 3 years ago. Yes?
If you prove him guilty and they're actually not guilty, what will?
Okay, so it's a good question. She says, what if somebody is found guilty, but they're actually not guilty? So one thing to understand is, as you saw here today, the judge isn't the one who finds them guilty, okay? It's the jury's job to decide whether they're guilty or not guilty. Now, if they find them guilty, it's the judge's job to decide what the punishment will be. It's also the judge's job. The judge is sort of like, if you're in a sporting event, you know, the referee doesn't get out and swing the bat, right? The umpire doesn't swing the bat or throw the football, right? The ref's job, the official's job, is to make sure everybody follows the rules, right? That's the same thing in a court case. The judge is the referee. I don't pull for one side or the other. I don't play the game. I just make sure everybody follows the rules. So that's my big job in a trial, is to make sure everybody follows the law, the rules of the law. So I don't decide whether they're guilty or not guilty. The jury does that just like they're doing in this case right now. But, you know, if a jury finds somebody guilty and there later comes out new evidence, their attorney can bring before the court a motion to hear some new evidence. It's very difficult to overturn a jury's verdict that way, but it is possible. Let's say there have been cases like before. Now we have a kind of evidence called DNA evidence, where, you know, we all have DNA in our blood and it's all unique. Well, you know, back in the 60s and 70s, 80s even, didn't have that technology. We couldn't analyze DNA and see who it belonged to. And there were some people that were convicted of crimes back then, and there might have been evidence of blood on the scene or something like that, that now we could analyze and find DNA in it that might show that they, in fact, didn't do it. Well, there have been cases where that blood that was still in evidence in the police department somewhere was analyzed, and it showed that the person who was charged with the crime was not guilty, and that evidence was brought before the court, and that person ended up getting out of prison. So it's possible for that to happen. It doesn't happen very often, but it is possible. Yes?
Can you sue someone when you're in prison? And if you can't, can you do like a trial in the prison?
It's a good question. The question was, can you sue someone when you're a prisoner in a prison? And the answer is yes, and they do it a lot. Because there's not a lot to do in a prison, but they do have a law library, and they have papers and pencils, and a lot of the prisoners will file their own motions in their criminal cases, or they will file lawsuits against the warden of the prison, or against, hey, we've had it where they filed a suit against judges and the prosecutors and things like that. So yes, you can do that. And you would not have the trial in the prison. What would happen if you had a trial on something like that is the person in the prison would be brought back to the local area, and you would have it in the courthouse. They would still be, they wouldn't be walking free or anything, but they would come to the trial, be brought to the trial by the sheriff. Yeah, good question. Yes, sir. I don't think we got a question from you yet.
What would happen, or have you ever been sued?
Have I ever been sued? No, I never have. And I'll knock on wood on that one too. That'll probably happen tomorrow. Yes.
Have you ever had to arrest a police officer or a person in the government?
Okay. I think what your question is, has any police officer ever been charged with a crime and come to my court? And the answer is yes. There have a couple of cases where a police officer was charged with breaking the law. And that case goes just like any other case. I mean, it's the same rules, same law applies, same procedures. and they have the same rights as anybody else, and the jury decides whether they're guilty or not. In those cases, though, we never had a trial. The person pled guilty. In other words, took responsibility for what they did, admitted it, and then it's my responsibility to sentence them after that. So there was no trial. And, which brings up another thing. What you see on television are the trials like we did today. But most cases, in the 90% range, get resolved either by the person pleading guilty, who's charged with the crime, or the state, the prosecution dismissing the case. The biggest part of the cases get resolved without a trial. And the way that happens is the defense attorneys will negotiate with the state and say, okay, if my client pleads guilty, can we lower the punishment that they might get in exchange for us pleading guilty and there not having to be a trial? So it's called a plea negotiation. And if they come to an agreement as to what the punishment, the sentence will be, then the person pleads guilty. The case is over. Yes?
What was the dumbest case you had to deal with?
The dumbest case I've ever had? So, this is when I was a prosecutor. It's actually one of the first cases that I ever had. And this gentleman was pleading guilty to driving while he was drunk, right? And he had run off the road because he was drunk and he hit a tree. So he was pleading guilty, as we just talked about. He was taking responsibility before the judge. And the judge asked him, did you do this? Were you drunk and drove a car? He says, well, Judge, he says, I admit I had been drinking and I had been driving. But, he said, I did not run into that tree because I was drunk. He said, the reason I ran into the tree is that the CIA was beaming a laser beam into outer space off of a satellite, and it bounced back, and it got in my eyes, and it blinded me. And that's why I ran off the road. So that was the nuttiest thing that I've ever. You think he was still drunk when he was pleading guilty? I don't think drunk was the problem in court. I think he had a little something wrong with his mind. Yeah, okay. Yes. No, I never had a case like that. Did I see a hand over here? Yes, sir.
When you pass down sentence, do you have a set of guidelines you have to adhere to, or is it your discretion what you do?
Both. Good question. The question was, if you couldn't hear it, when I sentence somebody, is there a set of guidelines that I have to follow, or is it my discretion? And the answer is both. The law for any particular crime has a range of sentence. For a misdemeanor, a more minor crime, it's 12 months in jail and or $1,000 fine or less, okay? And it could be jail, probation, suspended sentence. But the most any of those things would be 12 months, okay? For a felony, it depends on what the crime is, but they will give you a range of time. Some crimes might be 1 to 3 years. A lot of drug charges, possession charges, are 1 to 3 years in prison. So that would be the range. Let's just continue on with drugs. For sale, it would be 5 to 30 years. For trafficking in drugs, it would be, in that same range, but a much larger fine. For a violent crime, it might be life, depending on what the crime is. So that there's always a range and an upper limit that you can't go past. But within that range, I have discretion and can decide what it is. In most cases. Now, where I don't have as much discretion is if the person has 3 prior felony convictions in the past and the state has offered those into evidence, then I would have to sentence them to the maximum, okay? Now, not all of that time has to be in prison. The total sentence has to equal the maximum. Some of it can be probation, some of it can be in jail. And whatever time in prison I give them, they have to serve every day of it, and they can't get out on parole. So, In some cases, I'm limited on my discretion, but in most cases, as long as it's within that range of time, I do have discretion. That's an excellent question. Thank you. Okay, yes. Yeah, you. Fortunately, none of my family members have, no. But if they did, I wouldn't be the judge on that case, okay? And probably none of our local judges would. What we do, if we have what's called a conflict, if we are close friends or we a relative or something like that of the person that's coming before us, whether it be in a criminal case or a lawsuit or whatever, we don't hear it. We remove ourselves from it because that would be a conflict for me to do something with somebody that I'm good friends with or that I'm related to. You know, the other side would think, well, this isn't fair because he's friends with them or that's his cousin or whatever. So we step aside and we bring in a judge, another judge that doesn't know them. And it may be a judge from outside of our area that would come in and hear it, if that were the case. Yes? Have I ever been to jail? No, I never have been to jail, and I hope I never am. I have been to jail. I was there yesterday, but I was just visiting, okay? We were bringing a tour of some of our local business people that are members of the Chamber of Commerce. The sheriff and I were giving them a tour of our local jail, and they were just visiting too, just to kind of see what the conditions were. So I have been there, but not as a resident, okay? We'll put it that way. Yes?
Say an officer is guilty. For everybody get out of jail, can they become an officer again?
Usually no. Usually no. Especially if it's a serious crime, like what we call a felony, more than 1 year, then you would not be able to, no. And some misdemeanors you would not be able to. Now some you could, but that would depend on whether the sheriff would want to hire you or the police chief would want to hire you if you have been convicted of certain crimes. Yes, sir.
What's your saddest case?
It's, as I said, the hardest and saddest, same, involve children. Anything involving a child would be the saddest. Yes, sir. Easiest case? Well, that's a different, nobody's ever asked me that. I'm not sure what my easiest case would be. I was sitting here thinking, you know, this trial was pretty short, but I think we have had shorter ones. I've had it where, you know, the prosecution only called one witness. It was for something like, you know, driving without a license, that kind of thing, something that's pretty easy to prove. You know, he said, you know, the officer got up and said, yeah, I pulled him over. Yep, he was driving, he was behind the wheel. And no, I checked him, he didn't have a license. So, you know, that took about 10 minutes of evidence. Do we have a verdict?
Not yet.
Okay. Are we going to have a mistrial? We haven't, but we can do it. Okay. Really? All right, let's take a few, just maybe one more question. I don't think I've got one from you. Yes, sir.
What was your shortest case ever?
Short. That was probably it. You know, I think the evidence might have taken about 10 minutes, and the verdict, you know, probably me giving them the law, like I did the instructional law, took longer than the evidence in that case. So we were probably done in an hour and a half, even when you count the deliberations and everything. Pretty short. Okay, well, maybe we got time for a couple more. Let's see. Yes, sir.
Have you ever had a case where someone's car tire popped and it slid off?
Well, you might have well, see, that wouldn't be a criminal case because there's nothing that you can do to prevent that necessarily. But it could be a civil case where you're suing somebody, like maybe your tire pops and you slide off and you damage somebody else's car and they sue you for the damage to their car. But no, I've never had a charge like that.
Will someone a criminal goes up and for example someone
No, never had one where anybody shot a tire out, but what I have had is where somebody is being chased by the police and the state trooper does a maneuver, it's called the pit maneuver, where they will sort of hit them in the rear quarter panel of the vehicle to try to put them into a spin that spins them off of the road so that they stop. Have had cases like that. Had one in Murray County like that where the trooper hit them and it ripped the whole back bumper off the car. And well, it was still hanging off the car, and he drug the bumper all the way to Tennessee like that. And they finally caught him in Tennessee when he ran out of gas just across the state line. Eventually, you're gonna run out of gas. Yes, sir. Yes. That's a good question. Have I ever sentenced somebody to death? I have not. We don't have many of those type of cases in our county. The last time that happened that I'm aware of in either Whitfield or Murray County was about 30 years ago. It was in the 90s. And yeah, then that was over in Murray County. And so it just doesn't happen very often here. It does in other places, but not here. Yes. Have I ever had anybody show up to court drunk? Yes, I have. More than once. So what you can do if that happens is there's something called contempt of court, when somebody does something that's disruptive of the court. And I can actually put them in jail because they are coming to court in a state that is disruptive to the court. So if you show up drunk, that's certainly the case, and I can put you in jail for that. Yes. Yes, sir. You. Lost it. You'll think of it in a minute. Yes, sir.
What's your favorite type of case?
My favorite type of case. Well, okay, so I do criminal cases like we did here today. I do civil cases, which are like lawsuits where you're suing each other for money. And I do domestic cases, which are like divorces and child custody and that kind of stuff. My favorite of those types are the criminal cases. I used to be a prosecutor, so that's kind of what I'm drawn to. I enjoy that the most. But I also, the domestic cases I don't mind so much. The only kind I really don't enjoy as much are the lawsuits, the civil cases. I had a judge tell me one time that our biggest job in a civil case is making sure the jury doesn't fall asleep because they're kind of boring. But I love the criminal cases. All right, we bring the jury back in. Are you the foreperson? All right, will you take the form back, please? All right, would our foreperson please rise? And has the jury reached a verdict? You have not, okay. So my question for you is this. Is there any hope or prospect that you will, the 12 of you, reach a unanimous verdict?
No.
Okay. So you are divided and you cannot come to a unanimous conclusion. Is that what I'm hearing? All right. Well, what we're going to do in that case is we're going to declare a mistrial. This is what we call a hung jury, where the 12 jurors cannot deliberate. Now, for this real life, I would send you back out there to continue deliberating for a lot longer than what we did, but this is pretend, so we're not going to do that today, and we'll declare a mistrial. And you may be seated. And what we would do in this case, if we continued on and they deliberated and deliberated and deliberated, could not ever reach a verdict, what I would do in that case is declare the mistrial, and then the state could choose to, if they wished, to retry the case again before a different jury, if they chose, and if they decided, well, we might run into the same situation again. If we did it again, they can dismiss the case if they choose. But if they wanted to, they could try it again. So I'm going to declare this a mistrial, and we'll leave it to the prosecution to decide if they want to try Jeremiah Birch again down the road. All right, very good. Well, everybody, you did a wonderful job. Let's give them all a hand. So attorneys and witnesses and the jury. And all parents and grandparents, if you want to take pictures of your kids, you're welcome to come up and do that.
1, 2, 3.